Guilfoyle, Ebony Williams, Dana Perino, and Greg Gutfeld. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. 2 weeks after winning the election, President-elect Donald Trump is laying out his vision for his first 100 days in office. In a new video posted on YouTube, Mr. Trump outlines his plan to put America first by focusing on jobs and boosting our nation's economy. Among his many goals, here are some of the highlights from the policy agenda.
On trade, I am going to issue our notification of intent to withdraw from the Trans-Pacific Partnership. On energy, I will cancel job-killing restrictions on the production of American energy. On regulation, I will formulate a rule which says that for every one new regulation, 2 old regulations must be eliminated. On national security, I will ask the Department of Defense and the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to develop a comprehensive plan to protect America's vital infrastructure from cyber attacks and all other form of attacks. On ethics reform, as part of our plan to drain the swamp, we will impose a 5-year ban on executive officials becoming lobbyists after they leave the administration, and a lifetime ban on executive officials lobbying on behalf of a foreign government.
All right, Dana, so a lot to unpack in there. I love the fact that there's, a handful of initiatives, a lot of them surrounding the creation of jobs or bringing jobs back here, repatriation of money, and unleashing the energy sector, something I think you and I both see eye to eye on, regulations in breaking some of the trade deals. Your thoughts on the economic effects of that?
Well, and some of this he can do on his own, because he's got a pen and a phone now, or well, in 52 days. Some of it he's going to need Congress. One of the things on the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I think that there's going to have to be something that fills that vacuum, though, because now we know that China is already pursuing free trade agreements individually then with all those countries. And one of the things President Obama was trying to argue with Donald Trump in their first meeting was that it's important from a strategic political sense, not just in terms of trade, but also in terms of defense.
Can I stay in trade with you for 1 second? So if he does, in fact, go ahead and break some of these trade agreements, the unilateral agreements, they could be strong as well, not only with China, but even with Great Britain. When Britain pulls themselves out of the EU, they're going to need some trade partners.
Right. So that I don't know how it's going to turn out. We'll see. I mean, I think a lot of it sounds good in theory, but one of the things that also that you need in order for jobs to come back would be the energy side of things and tax reform. Part of that, all of those things happen, and then you deal with the technological innovations that are happening in terms of you don't even have people actually doing manufacturing jobs anymore. A lot of it is turning to robots. So a couple of things there. The other thing is I like this idea of for every new regulation that is proposed, you have to eliminate 2. Just like it's a great idea, and I think it'll be really tough to do because everybody's going to want to will have a reason for why they want to keep a certain regulation. One of the biggest one will be Dodd-Frank on the financial sector.
Can I ask KG on security?
No, I was just trying to figure, if you eliminate 2 for 1, don't you end up at 0?
Yes.
Eventually.
That's amazing. Anyway, go ahead.
If you keep at, then you start cannibalizing your own regulation over time. KG, security, a lot of national security initiatives.
Yep.
Securing our infrastructure, I think, is an important one. That people say that we're under cyber attack constantly, our electricity grid and whatnot, and the various food and water supplies.
Yes, and what I like here is just right away, like right out of the gate, hey, this is what we're going to do. We're going to focus on cybersecurity, keep America great. Like, he's getting it. He understands that this is one of the biggest threats in terms of national security. We've got to lock this down. And he said on national security, he was going to ask Department of Defense and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to develop a comprehensive plan to protect America's infrastructure. So to me, that shows that he's really on the right page and he understands the importance of it, and it tells me that he's listening and understanding his briefings.
Greg, you said he needs to get the wall started at some point. We noticed the wall is ominously missing from this plan. When should he start that?
Maybe I think he's going to try. He's going to soften everybody up. He's like David Robinson. He's moving to the center fast. Nice. Little basketball.
Nice. I didn't get it.
I had to go to YouTube to find out that. Anyway, it's interesting because he's admitted a connection between climate and human activity after saying it was a hoax. He's talking about not prosecuting Hillary. So you're seeing him. He's not. I guess my point is, liberals relax. He's not the crazy right-wing nut job that you think he is. He's always, when he was talking about a lot of this stuff, he was always kind of winking at everybody. And he also has the benefit of a cult of personality. People voted for him because they liked him, so they're more forgiving if he changes his mind.
David Robinson, they nicknamed him the Admiral because he came from the Navy. He went from a forward position to a center position.
There you go.
For what team?
The San Antonio Spurs.
In what year? No, I'm kidding.
Anyway, I can't remember.
Nina's Trivia Corner.
Also missing, Obamacare, repealing and replacing Obamacare. Should he get started on that day 101?
I don't think so. I don't think that's where he starts. I think he starts exactly where he's talking about TPP and some of this economic stuff. Again, you've got a country, Eric, that's still, pretty wide apart on what they think about President-elect Trump, right? So I think it's very smart and a good place politically and strategically to start where there is some common interest. Everybody wants prosperity back. Everybody wants us to be better positioned as we go to the trade table. That's smart. And it buys him goodwill, to Greg's point, for people that are still very freaked out about this. If he can demonstrate some goodwill in these first 3 months here about getting America back on track, and in lieu of the wall, you're right, that's missing, but he's talking about re-examining the visa stuff, reinforcing what's already on the books. That doesn't feel so crazy and hysteric. That's just following the law and making good sense, and it has an economic benefit to boot.
Can I bring it around the table? What do you start on this side? What do you think of releasing this via video rather than a press conference?
Well, who was this is something that, didn't President Obama start this? I mean, this is just a great way to get stuff out there, and you don't have to deal with the hassles of answering questions. Yeah, it's an easy thing to do, and we're covering it.
Yes.
It works.
Also, if you submitted to a press conference at this point, pretty much everything would be picked apart, and you would say, well, how would you do that, and when, and why, but how much would you spend, and which regulations? All sorts of questions that there are not answers to yet as they continue to form a government. He doesn't have a cabinet fully formed yet. He hasn't even been sworn in. I think doing the video is fine.
And it's a smart move, I think, based on what you just said.
Yeah. And it's a good way to also, like I said, bypass the mainstream media in its totality. I know we'll get to it a little bit later about that contentious relationship. But this is great. To Greg's point, this is a very smart use of new media. I think Donald Trump is partly in the White House because of his brilliant usage of this type of media. And it's a good media place to start.
Remember when he used to do those videos from his desk?
Yeah.
Like, was it years ago? And they were so poorly recorded, but he would be sitting there like this.
Intimate. It's very intimate.
It wasn't even that long ago. It's even while he was, running for president. Some of them came. You remember there was the taco bowl from the desk as well. Side note, deep tease here. Tonight, Reince Priebus will be on the Factor tonight. Have a lot of questions to ask him about this plan and about some of the stuff.
I wonder if he's going to tweet out his executive orders. Wouldn't that be interesting?
You mean?
Meaning like this tweet on like before,
you could do a poll, like one of those online polls where do you like this regulation, yes or no, and then you could.
Well, he's got to junk the Paris Treaty. I think that's why he said.
That's not what he's saying.
Well, I think what he's saying is he's going to keep an open mind on climate change, so that way people go, oh, maybe he's not so bad, and then he's going to say, but the Paris Treaty, that sucks.
Let me throw one more thing at you guys. Paul
Label
Ryan today
China
wrote a letter.
A currency manipulator. I like that one.
Paul wrote a letter to President Obama saying, hey, back off on the Iran deal. Don't soften any more sanctions. Let us handle it. We have, you're a lame duck. Let Donald Trump, President Donald Trump, take over the Iran deal. Your thoughts?
Well, one of the things that we haven't talked that much about is Congressman Pompeo, who was named the CIA director. This is a guy who has been very tough on the Obama administration when it came to Iran. And one of the things he said is, okay, there's the deal, and that is the thing, but we have not followed through on the punishments, right? So the sticks have not been followed through on. And Pompeo, I think because he's coming from the House, he's super well informed, by all accounts, a wonderful guy who could be helping on that side of things. And Paul Ryan also has been very adamant. Actually, all the Republicans on the Iran deal have been strong. And I think what they're concerned about are these sort of rumors that President Obama might be able to do something within the next 52 days that makes it
he was going
difficult.
To, right?
I'm not exactly sure what he could do.
I think he said that he was going to reach even further agreement with Iran as far as lifting further sanctions. I think this is a god-awful idea.
Yeah, I know. No kidding. But there's a bunch of things that he can do, too, that he doesn't even need to go through Congress. And I think that's going to be important because people are going to be looking for, like, a manifest change and his leadership to be demonstrated right away. And there's a bunch of them that he can, like, tick off that I think, meaning off the list, that it would be great for him to get out there for people to see exactly the direction that he's going.
And to that point, so he can also do a lot of stuff through, I think it's reconciliation orders and things like that, where he doesn't have to get the 2/3. He can just get a simple 51% majority. Since Obamacare was pushed through that way, how you get it is how you lose it sometimes. So that's a good place for him to start with that type of stuff.
You know what's interesting is he's tangling up the normal patterns of opposition, where there used to be left and right, and when you bring up infrastructure, Democrats love to spend. So when they hear infrastructure, they get very excited.
Softens the power.
So what happens to the conservative deficit hawks? Where are those guys? So he starts to create these different oppositions that didn't really exist before.
Well, we made a lot of fun of President Obama for shovel-ready projects that weren't there. So there's some work that needs to be done to figure out with the mayors and the governors what actually needs to be
hook up that pipeline.
Senior advisor Steve Bannon, who's spent many years on Wall Street, went to Harvard, very smart guy, said, he makes a very good point. If you're going to borrow, if you're going to deficit spend, it's borrowing.
Spend it on something.
Do it when the interest rates are low like they are right now, and there's a lot of indication interest rates may be rising.
Does that make sense?
Well, don't you think that? Don't you think the Fed?
A lot of sense.
But if Obama had done that, we would have crucified him.
But that's the point, right, Greg? Is that Obama, the policy can remain somewhat the same, but the messenger does make a difference, and that's the sad truth.
Yeah, well, I would have loved Obama if he cut taxes and got rid of the IRS.
But I mean, his spending. Remember, we were going to shut down the government over spending.
I can ask you in the commercial break for a more fulsome answer, but I was wondering if you think that the Fed will actually try to raise rates before President Obama leaves.
I would hope that they would let I mean, we're artificially keeping them low. I hope Donald Trump has said let them float. Let them go where they should be going. So
it's probably good to do it before.
They're doing it themselves already. It's already starting. The rates are starting.
And record close for the Dow.
And a record close for the Dow. Coming up, President-elect Trump's media reset. He's met with top brass for news outlets over the past 2 days. Has he mended fences with some of the biggest critics? The details of his sit-downs next.
New developments on President-elect Donald Trump's media relations. This afternoon, Mr. Trump met with top executives and reporters at the New York Times, a newspaper he has often referred to as, quote, failing. Earlier this morning, he had abruptly canceled the sit-down, accusing the paper of trying to change the ground rules at the last minute. The Times denied that charge. This comes one day after Mr. Trump met with TV news executives and anchors at Trump Tower in a session that some media outlets have described as contentious. After that meeting, however, senior advisor Kellyanne Conway described it as very cordial.
Fairness is actually not having presumptive negativity written about you and always assuming the worst about you. And I think that Donald Trump has faced an unprecedented avalanche of critical coverage when he was running. And frankly, I think in part, he owes his victory to that. There was a backlash against the elites, a backlash against those who were telling Americans what is important to them.
All right, so that was her sit-down with Megyn Kelly last night on the Kelly File. So what do you make of the situation, the storm that seems to be brewing continuously?
Well, so I'm trying to figure, Donald Trump brought the group over to the New York Times building. That was very interesting to me. Everyone had been coming to Trump over the last few days, but he went there, and maybe it's extending an olive branch to the New York Times. Yes, he said they're failing. Yes, he said they're, a bunch of things about them, but they've had some pretty unfair treatment of Donald Trump as well. Remember all those threats they made, that they had tapes and they had, tax, they had a whole bunch of stuff. So hopefully maybe there's some sort of, friendship being struck so that they at least cover the POTUS 45 fairly. They said they're going to try and do that. The TV executives was interesting to me. I mean, he brought them in there, and there are some that I would think that, treated him pretty rotten, but he, look, he's saying let's try and reset this media arrangement or relationship that we have, and I think it's a good thing. Hopefully it works.
Okay, and Dana, yesterday, just hours after sitting down with the media outlets with a reset, essentially, say, let's start this over, let's sit down, then this comes on the heels of it, the New York Times backlash.
I think it's good, especially if he is, he was the one that was willing to clear the air.
Yes.
Okay, so that doesn't mean that there's going to be good relations all the time going forward. The relationship between the press and the government is naturally adversarial. I happen to have a pretty thick skin for negative coverage, but I worked for a president that also had that, and he'd built it up over many years. Thankfully, I never got yelled at, and usually he would say, oh, that article wasn't as bad as you thought it was going to be, even though there were plenty of bad ones. Because I had a rule, I would always read the article twice before I complained to the reporter. I would just say that's, if you're in public relations, it's kind of a good way to deal with it. There's another reason that I don't think anybody has really brought up yet for him to have good relationships with the media, and especially the New York Times. There will come a time during his presidency when the paper or another media outlet will get information about a top secret situation, whether it be a program that we use or people that might be on the ground somewhere. And the media likes to uncover these stories. And there will be times when the administration will have to go to the executives of those media organizations and make their case for why there is a national security risk for that information being made public. The media has a very high bar for that. The Bush administration didn't always clear it, and I think that actually led to a lot of harm and hurtful to efforts to fight terrorism. They would deny that, but I think that's true.
It's interesting, the relationship there. All right, so Greg, what do you make of it now? How's this been handled? Is this the right approach?
Well, okay. We know one thing about President-elect Trump. He cares about what people think, and it bothers him. Criticism bothers him. He gets upset. He also likes strange new respect. He likes it when people that don't normally like him end up liking him, so maybe he's trying to figure that out. It's easy to go after the media. We do it all the time. They take things out of context. Every one of us here has had stuff taken out of context by certain organizations, and it pisses you off. Yeah. But we've also mocked President Obama for being so thin-skinned over Fox News. I think I'd done 4 monologues on that about, every time he'd mention Fox News, we just go, oh, grow up.
And there's still time.
But, but then I have mixed feelings, because then I think the more time Trump spends doing this, maybe the less he'll spend, spending.
Oh, interesting. You're worried about that?
Well, I am. I'm a limited government guy, Kimberly. I thought you knew that.
A little bit of a gator.
It's going to be a rough 4 years.
Arms over there, Greg.
I know.
Can't reach your pockets. Gator arms, Greg. Okay,
no, it's called being a conservative.
Oh, fascinating.
Well, no, you know what? The reset, I think, is important, Kimberly, but I also think that they were invited over to Trump Tower. I'm talking about the media execs and anchors now for a little bit of a spanking. I think Donald Trump, just a little bit, because obviously he did not appreciate little Trump tap. He didn't appreciate the coverage at all. And I think in order for him to move forward, Donald Trump, President-elect Trump, that was going to be important for him. Now, in terms of the New York Times, I think you're bringing up a brilliant, and you're right, kind of a point that many of us are not considering, Dana, that the goodwill between President-elect Trump and the administration and the media is important, not just so that they sing his praises around that stuff, but this much more important piece to that equation. Kellyanne Conway, I think, was absolutely right. Trump ultimately, I think, very much benefited from the media trying to be smug and tell people what they should care about and what they should be voting on. So I think this is a good opportunity to kind of, after the spanking, sweep it under the rug and hopefully move forward with skeptical, rightfully so, coverage, but fair and honest coverage.
Good example of what you guys are both talking about is the night bin Laden was killed, right? The media knew about it, and media had to keep that quiet until President Obama went to the podium and said, "Hey, we got bin Laden." Remember that? And that's the high bar that you talk about.
Well, another one though was enhanced interrogation techniques, of which 2 terrorists underwent, and they still ran with that story and blew up the program.
Unbelievable. Guess what? Coming back. Directly ahead, President-elect Trump defends his cabinet picks after getting backlash from some unhappy liberals. Details on all of it when we return.
We are hearing about some potential new developments in President-elect Trump's cabinet. Mr. Trump reportedly told the New York Times this afternoon he is seriously considering tapping James Mattis for Secretary of Defense. This after the president-elect also tweeted that he's open to having Dr. Ben Carson as Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, despite Carson taking his name out of consideration earlier this month. The picks that Mr. Trump has already made for his administration are already coming under fire. Critics say they lack diversity and are too ideological and extreme.
These are radically divisive choices. Instead of Donald Trump seeing a way to unify the country, he has chosen division.
We saw that he brought in Michelle Rhee and Nikki Haley, but is there really any likelihood of a pick who's not a white male at this point?
The 5 picks announced so far have all been white men, so the pressure is on.
Trump transition officials insist that the team the president-elect ultimately puts together will represent a cross-section of America, and goodness gracious, they've really only announced 3 or 4 actual picks, Greg. You think you can maybe hold on before they say it's too white and male?
There's not a single reptile in the cabinet or a panda. Okay, the more that Democrats and liberals scream diversity, the more clueless they're going to look. Because right now, you're seeing a backlash of identity politics. America wants competence. They don't want quotas. And The noble idea of diversity has now become kind of a parody because it's been said so many times, and people are starting to doubt whether talent or character matters. And they're tired and they're cynical of anything that smacks of identity or quotas. So I think the more that they do this, the more Trump wins by ignoring it.
I think it's important, though, to point out, Greg, that those two are not mutually exclusive at all.
Right.
Certainly people can be both competent and represent a diverse perspective and experience.
I agree.
Absolutely. And look, to Dana's point, it's been 3 or 4 picks. So, and I'm going to say, I am personally very concerned about Senator Jeff Sessions and Bannon. However, I am hopeful, and I will remain that way until I have further proof to feel otherwise around the fact that there are other names in consideration. I know Michelle Reed said that she is not actively seeking something in the cabinet, but she didn't say she wouldn't take it. Also, there's Hawaiian Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard. She's a vet. She's got serious concerns with Obama's position on national security. She's not afraid to challenge her own party there. And she had apparently a very good meeting with Trump yesterday. So let's just let the chips fall is my take on it.
And Dr. Ben Carson, he was running for president, and then he was an active surrogate for Donald Trump. Then last week said, I am not going to pursue anything because I don't have experience running the government. But today, now it sounds like he might end up as a cabinet secretary for housing and urban development.
And again, Trump was very transparent. President-elect Donald Trump was very transparent in talking about that and mentioning it as well. He has high regard for Dr. Carson, as he should. Dr. Carson was a big supporter of his right away, and I'll never forget the moment, and you can tell this is the connection with him, and I think it's because the president-elect would like to have him working by his side and be close to him. During the debates, everybody else walked by Dr. Carson when he didn't hear his name called, except Donald Trump stopped.
And helped him.
And
that's right.
Was right there with him and would not go out till Dr. Carson went out. Dr. Carson has talked about that on Fox and
that's interesting.
In television as well. So I think there was some mutual, respect there, and I think they would work well together. And I think Dr. Carson, he loves his country. He's super talented, and if he feels honestly that there's a way, that there's a calling, that he could do something that would benefit the country, I think he would rise to the occasion.
Good for the media to tap the brakes in terms of its criticism.
I'm not sure what they're even talking about. In the one soundbite, I think it was NBC, said, well, except for Michelle Reed, Nikki Haley, and as Ebony points out, Tulsi Gabbard, except for those 3, there's no women. Really? Because
and Mary Fallon, the governor of Oklahoma.
But if you question whether or not Donald Trump will hire the most competent person versus whether it's a male, female, black, white, gay, straight, it doesn't matter. Look at who he surrounded himself as his closest advisors. It started out with Hope Hicks from day one. She was there right next to him. He brought on Kellyanne Conway to be right next to him throughout the process. Ivanka was there. I think Ivanka was his strongest surrogate.
He likes strong women around him.
So stop with at least the gender. Now, Ben Carson came along early. Donald Trump will put on the most competent people, and I'm sure and maybe they're going to say, hey, there needs to be more diversity, but as far as his cabinet goes, put the most important people, put the people who are going to make the country the safest and the greatest.
Equality of opportunity, but not of result.
Right.
Choose the best people.
Yep.
So it looks like they're going to wait till after Thanksgiving, so everybody should be able to enjoy their turkey day.
Oh, wow.
Before they get more information.
Yeah, because it was definitely keeping me up at night, I'll tell you that
You worried?
much. Yeah, I don't think I was going to make it.
All right.
What are you talking about?
Well, I think that's all that we have on this because we don't have any more picks to talk about, but we will continue to follow that story. Directly ahead, big developments on President-elect Trump's campaign promise to prosecute Hillary Clinton for her various scandals. Details when the 5 returns.
President-elect Donald Trump says he is not taking the possibility of prosecuting Hillary Clinton off the table. According to the New York Times reporter who met with Mr. Trump earlier, he said, quote, "It's just not something I feel very strongly about." The president-elect also telling the Times he doesn't want to, quote, "hurt the Clintons." The remark comes shortly after his senior advisor, Kellyanne Conway, said Mr. Trump will not pursue criminal charges against his former rival on her scandals. So, Eric, do you think this at all hurts President-elect Trump, with particularly his base and his followers who, very much seem out for blood for Hillary Clinton? Or do you think at this point he's won, he is talking ambitiously about his first 100 days, and they are also going to give him permission to move on from this?
I don't think this is settled. I don't think Donald Trump has moved on. I think what he said is he's not interested in pushing for a special prosecutor, which means that the investigation will continue to go forward. I'm not even sure he can say it's going to stop right now. I think the FBI would want to continue the investigation. But again, Reince Priebus tonight at 8. I'm going to ask him, does this mean it's over? Is it all over? Are you going to continue? What if there's new evidence?
Well, it's the purview of the Attorney General, and if it's Senator Sessions that takes that position, then he's going to review the files and the different cases that are pending and determine, what track, what should go forward, et cetera. That's how it's going to be, an effort. It's not that the president has the authority to directly order the Attorney General to appoint a special prosecutor. So,
but he could, though, couldn't he? Couldn't a president ask the Attorney General to appoint a special prosecutor?
Well, it doesn't necessarily work exactly like that, to be honest. The thing is that's going to be important here is that also Congress is going over this, and that's going to be the direction that I think it's going to take. I don't think that President-elect Trump is going to step in the way of anything like that. He's just saying that he is not personally going to direct or continue, but there are other avenues that legally and lawfully can be followed.
And for clarity, KG, it would be premature, to Eric's point, that President-elect Trump would definitively be able to make any statement around that. Right. Okay. Now, Greg.
So I think it's a good statement.
Just a fair statement. So, Greg, you said you don't like spending money. Do you have concerns about Hillary Clinton costing America more money around this, in all seriousness?
Yeah, I mean, it just proves that campaign rhetoric is all lies. This was for the base. This was red meat. And then once you're in office, the red meat turns into tofu. Breitbart, check out the website. It ain't happy. They called it a broken promise. But you know who's really upset about this? Bill. he almost had the place to himself. Now he's got to take his name off Tinder, and he's got to return all those leather goods.
Okay.
Is that true?
Yes.
The leather thing?
Yeah. There's a discount place I can hook you up with.
No, not for me.
Dana, do you think people in general care about this, other than kind of this red meat base? Do you think America wants to see Trump and his administration spending time and money on this, or do you think they want him to move forward with this agenda, or do you think both?
I don't know. I guess we'll have to see. I mean, this is a long way from lock her up, which was the chant at all of the rallies since right before the convention. But I think for his base, winning was enough, right? So they're like, fine, and they get to wake up every morning and they realize, oh my gosh, my guy is going to be the president. So they don't want to see that. Plus, from a PR perspective, I see it both ways. For the Trump campaign, or I should say future administration, if they continued, let's just say that it all continues, and the House and the Senate are pursuing their investigations, it will be headlines for as far as the eye can see. Every week there will be another headline. Do you really want to take up front page space talking about Hillary Clinton every week? I don't think so. However, if you're Hillary Clinton, do you want in the history page, in the Wikipedia page forever, that Donald Trump was actually so benevolent that he made sure not to prosecute you, and you're sitting there thinking, well, wait, I didn't do anything wrong. I'd rather have my day in court to prove I didn't do anything wrong. So I think it cuts both ways.
And I think to that point, a lot of people are saying President Obama would be doing her a disservice if indeed he did offer a pardon in advance.
No, she'd probably take it.
What was it? One in the hand is better than two in the bush, right?
If you get that pardon, you'll take the pardon before you take a chance on winning.
Do you know that you can pardon people for for prospective
things? Yeah, the Supreme Court decided
like you're absolved.
For crimes not committed, for things currently in prosecution.
Things you might do.
Things you might think about doing. How about that, Greg? You might need one of those. I was just thinking that.
President-elect Trump should nominate her for Supreme Court Justice.
This is going to be muy interesante, as
very
interesting.
She'd probably get confirmed.
She would. There you go.
Maybe,
no.
Bygones be bygones.
There's no money in that, people. She's not.
I'll send her a copy of the Constitution before she takes the bench.
By the way, Bowling, President-elect Trump, once he's president officially, he can suggest, but he cannot
demand.
Appoint.
Right, he can just nominate. That's it.
There's been a lot of talk about how divisive this election is and how Thanksgiving might end up with silent feuds all around the table. I blame the 1960s, which spawned the leftist slogan, "The personal is political," which links personal experience with political movements, obviously. So if you weren't a liberal, you were morally flawed. Being conservative meant you weren't just wrong, but evil. But now today, disagreement is a novelty for many people. An 18-year-old in 2008, weaned on the Daily Show diet, made it to age 26 without ever facing a single contrary opinion. Which is why, when their bubble burst on November 8th, these champions of diversity now demand complete silence. If you dare bring up Trump in front of them, it's over. Oddly, I haven't lost a single friend over this because I have so few.
Yep.
But also, I don't talk politics beyond this table. Here's why. Live long enough, and you see how little of the hysteria on either side ever really rings true. Obama was never that bad or that great, and the same's probably going to go for Trump. But cable news magnifies the friction, and Facebook delivers it from familiar faces. It's all noise that ultimately gets reabsorbed into the mundane rhythm of your daily life. But if your friends or family don't return to the table, relax. They weren't that close to you to begin with, and that means more food for all of us. So, Dana, do you have any? Have you ever had a falling out like that with anybody, or does everybody in your family pretty much think the same way? You must have friends at some point before you became a Republican.
But I also learned early on manners.
Yes, manners.
Manners.
I forgot that.
And civility.
Yes, you have.
And trying to keep the because my big thing, I want everyone to get along.
That's true.
Right. So I would think that this year, like the mom can just declare Thanksgiving dinner a politics-free zone.
Yeah.
And if anyone starts bringing up politics, you can make them put $1 in this jar, not the square jar.
$1 in the jar.
I remember actually one Thanksgiving, right after my parents got divorced, we were living in San Diego and we weren't going home. And we weren't going to go back to England for Thanksgiving, obviously. And my husband and I went to Hamburger Mary's in San Diego.
Good place.
And it was and we watched the sunset. It was great.
Never-
Not Hamburger Mary's, no, the Green Flash. That's where it was. It was on the beach.
Thanks for that. Never knew why she got that nickname. Hey, Eric, do you have you have friends? You have friends on the other side of the spectrum.
get that.
Well, our next door neighbors who were sure Hillary Clinton was going to win were so friendly and so happy, and they were just thrilled. And poor Nita,
Have you checked on them?
The day that Donald Trump won, we happened to bump into him, and she was just beside herself. And we love you. We're still friends. But everything you outlined is liberal. Liberalism is on life support in America. The Republicans have the White House. We have the Senate, 51. You have about 25 lead in the House right now. 18 Senate seats are up for, the Democrats are going to have to defend governorships. 31 out of 50 governors are Republican. I mean, the country has spoken saying, we tried that. We've tried that for a long time. Now let's try conservatism, Republicanism, whatever form you want to call it, but different from what it was. So it'll be
because
nice
liberals left
Thanksgiving
behind
discussions
broken
on that.
cities.
Yes.
High body count.
Yep.
It's true.
Yep.
Well, talk about a house divided. So my mother and her sister, older sister, my aunt is super duper Hillary Clinton. She was very devastated. She is okay. We did check.
Okay.
My mother was a humongous Trump supporter from day one, which everyone knows.
Calling it.
So this
Love
was
it.
funny. My grandmother, who has a little dementia, but she's still rocking. She's 83. And I was like, well, Grandma's not going to know who to vote for in this election. So I figured my mom would try to be a little sneaky and take my grandmother to the polls to cast her Trump vote. But then I saw on Facebook that my aunt took my grandmother to the poll to cast a vote for Hillary
Beat her
Clinton.
to the
Yes,
punch.
Get out
girl.
the
Can
vote.
you believe it? I was like, oh no. So I
Those
called my
Clinton
mom.
supporters.
Are we laughing?
That is all so bad.
But then, no, I have good
They're
news.
still recounting the ballots in North
voter
Carolina.
fraud.
I've got good news for everybody. So my grandmother actually made her own mind up that she wanted to support Hillary Clinton, and my mother refused to take her to the polls. That's how Aunt Sherry ended up taking Grandma to the polls. So hopefully we don't talk about any of this.
That's amazing.
This Thanksgiving.
Thank God we're talking about it on live television.
Well, now it's out the way, Grant.
No,
We can move on.
Kimberly,
Just our little secret.
Kimberly, you were married. Okay, so you must have, when you were in San Francisco, mayor of San Francisco, your husband, his side of the family, you were the first lady.
Thanks for that recap.
Yeah, it was a wonderful brief period in your life, and and you've moved on.
Who are you, Dr. Phil? What's going on here?
This is your life. So, did you ever have any awkward moments? Like,
Okay, like for
Thanksgiving?
example, like all the family dinners and all the events that had Nancy Pelosi was his aunt, is Gavin's aunt. And yes, and Dianne Feinstein, I like her tremendously.
Were you Flosif? Flosif?
Of San
Was I
Francisco. First Lady of San Francisco.
First Lady of San Francisco. You were Flosif.
I was, but I didn't like to refer to myself as that. Doesn't sound so
Sounds like
attractive.
something you use for female hygiene.
I don't know.
Or your teeth.
Oh
Floss
my
off.
God.
Yeah, I tried the floss off and it went right away.
Greg, do you think it's
Maybe
easier?
you did.
Is it safer to talk about religion this year at Thanksgiving?
I think so.
You're not supposed to talk about religion or politics, but
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I steer clear of everything.
I bet you're fun to talk religion with at
Oh
Thanksgiving.
yeah.
You wouldn't know. You disinvited him last year. Remember that? Aw,
It's true.
does
Thanks for that
Does
disinvite.
it hurt?
Yeah, it does hurt. Yeah, just rub it in, Kimberly. Mm-hmm. All right. Well, anyway, that worked. One more thing is up next.
Hey, time for one more thing. I'll start it off. You've heard that. Obviously, you've heard that Reince Priebus is coming on The Factor tonight. I'm hosting The Factor, but I'm going to go through, and Kimberly's on as well. But I want to ask him about the Clinton prosecution. I'm going to ask him about the alt-right movement and the Trump response to that, and the media meetings. Those are something I really want to get into because he's been at the center of all those. I'm going to lay off transition maybe a little bit towards the end, but we've heard a lot about that, so make sure you check that one out. Dana's up.
Okay, so ever hear of LinkedIn? You know,
Yes, I have.
But if LinkedIn drives you crazy, check out Rally Point. Rally Point is for active duty military and veterans. It was named by Forbes as the #2 veteran-founded startup. So if you want to network amongst the military, or if you're an employer and you're looking to hire some really great people, this is a place you could go because they just accepted their millionth registered member. So
Amazing.
Rally Point is it. I did a Q&A with them today. It was a lot about politics and Jasper book.
Of course.
Rally Point, we did one with them a year and a half ago, and they've grown tremendously. So if you are in the military or retired, or if you're an employer looking for good people, Rally Point is just an amazing place. And it was so civil and nice.
Oh.
Fantastic.
That's good stuff.
I like that a lot, Dana.
All right,
Oh,
Gregory.
Thank you.
All right, let's do this thing here. Greg's nutrition tips. You know what?
Half-hearted.
Finally,
Yeah, what happened to with Velcro?
I'm mailing it in.
With Velcro.
We took 2 shows today, okay? We taped the show.
We tape shows.
That's
Yes, I know.
supposed
But
to be a secret.
you can now put a bird on a bird. The TSA has announced that you can carry a turkey with you on the plane, provided that it meets the regulatory, limits of its size.
3 ounces?
Yeah, exactly. But you can actually take your turkey with you on a flight. I think it's quite stupid. Because people could stuff things in there. You're going to have to open it. You never know what's inside a turkey.
The turkey.
Well,
yeah, I guess you could X-ray.
It's got to be
I
dead,
think
right?
it's a terrible idea. And
Really?
I do love the TSA, but I don't like that.
Well, you know what? Mind your own business.
All right.
Oh my gosh,
don't let
you
people read your
really-
notes. That didn't work for Chris Kobach. You're up, Kenji.
All right, thank you so much. So I had a food court, but there was a situation with it, so we won't talk about it. Instead, we'll talk about babies. Because the original Gerber baby, Ann Turner Cook, celebrated her 90th birthday on Sunday. Look at that
She's on the right.
gorgeous lady and that beautiful baby, one in the same. So in 1928, Cook was 4 months old, and Gerber had this contest, and her neighbor painted a charcoal sketch, and this is it. And they loved it so much, they've used it this entire time. And the neighbor was Dorothy Hope Smith. She was an artist, and she entered this contest. So it's so amazing. They said, Gerber, the logo is the essence of who we are. It is the epitome of a happy, healthy baby and the symbol of trust we have with parents. It's everything to our company. Isn't that amazing?
That is so awesome.
And her identity remained a secret until 1978.
I love the plums.
The plums.
Oh.
By the way, it's
good.
Gerber baby food?
Oh, yeah. I have a lot of friends that eat this.
Yeah, they're called starving fashion models.
Well, a couple
Does it work?
Well, let's move on. I'm sorry, Ebony.
It's okay. So I had the best weekend, you guys. I was able to go down to Charleston, South Carolina, where I had the honor of judging the Miss South Carolina USA pageant. It was fantastic. And we had so much fun, and we had the opportunity to be escorted by Charleston's finest, that is North Charleston Police Department officers. They were amazing. They kept us safe and protected all weekend. Because, some of these moms, they take this stuff very seriously.
Tell me about it.
In all seriousness. And then next up, you'll see that we crowned 2 fantastic winners.
Wow.
They will be going on to Miss Teen USA, that is Alexis Johnson, and Miss Megan Gordon will go to Miss USA. That will be airing on Fox Television. And the RPM family put that thing on, and they were fantastic. It was just really an amazing
Are you a tough
experience.
judge?
I'm a very tough judge.
Really?
I'm a very
Good.
fair judge. But look, because, it's an honor to represent your state at that level and, have little girls and boys look up to you and you go into classrooms and speak and all of that good stuff. So,
I agree.
I know
I'm
what
tough.
it's like.
Good
yeah.
for you.
I did it for a while.
Do you ever have your mind changed?
Absolutely. So there's 3 phases of competition: swimsuit, evening gown, and interview. An interview can change a lot.
We got to leave it there. Also, 11/22 anniversary of a very dark day. JFK was shot in Dallas this day many years ago. All right, set your DVRs. Never miss an episode of The 5 Special Report next.